Is Susan Twist playing a TARDIS in human form? After the recent Disney Plus trailer for Season 1 of the new Doctor Who, I think she might be. Let's look at why. Ever since The Church on Ruby Road aired, there's been a mystery surrounding the actor Susan Twist, as she had appeared as two seemingly different characters in episodes only months apart. As Mrs. Meridew in the pre-title Isaac Newton scene of Wild Blue Yonder, the scene infamous for altering history so the word gravity became mavity instead, and then as part of the audience at Ruby's band's gig calling out a song request, set hundreds of years after the Isaac Newton scene. The speculation further intensified when Russell T Davies teased in Doctor Who magazine that there was more to her appearances than simply reusing an actor. And now, two more bits of information have come out that can be linked together to possibly reveal that she's actually playing a TARDIS in human form. Not the first time we've had one of those, or even the second, but more on that in a bit. The first bit of info relating to this is the supposed leak that she will be appearing once again in the upcoming season, this time playing a character called Susan Triad, founder of Triad Technology. Triad was briefly mentioned in The Giggle by Mel.
Mel, is this static or dynamic?
Dynamic. We're using Triad.
But is set to play a bigger part in the upcoming season. And then there's the trailer, which featured one shot of the TARDIS being scanned in Unit HQ, but if you look on the screen behind the TARDIS, you can see the words S-Triad Technology Announcement. The S presumably standing for Susan. But what is S-Triad an anagram for? TARDIS, of course. So is she a TARDIS? It's not unprecedented, but there are other possibilities. We'll get to those in a second, but first of all, let's look at the history of TARDISes in human form. There are two main types of human form TARDIS in Doctor Who history. A functioning, sentient TARDIS whose outer shell just happens to be humanoid, one that other people can still travel within and has its own console room once you go inside them. That sounds a bit weird. And the second time is a TARDIS's consciousness but put into a humanoid body. The first type were a plot point in the 8th Doctor range of BBC novels released between 1997 and 2005. 8 first encounters one in the novel Alien Bodies, where an individual named Quixotl? I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce this, honestly. It's Quixotl. Quixotl. Possibly. Anyway, this person has a companion named Maria, who, it turns out during the course of the story, was actually a human form TARDIS. Quixotl was holding an auction for the relic, which actually turned out to be the Doctor's future deceased body, and the evolved TARDIS is also from the Doctor's future timeline. Along his own timeline, these TARDIS's first steps are the Type 102 TARDIS, created when one of the Doctor's companions, Compassion, who receives signals that influence her personality, starts to receive signals from the Doctor's TARDIS. In a separate non-BBC spin-off media, Faction Paradox Stories, it's revealed that this is partly due to the Doctor's TARDIS desiring to have a child. The signals from the TARDIS gradually change Compassion, and in the novel The Shadows of Avalon, she finally becomes a TARDIS. The Time Lords, of course, are keen to get hold of Compassion to try and recreate this, and she's destined to go on to be the mother of all Type 103 human form TARDISes after this, used in the future War in Heaven that these books heavily deal with. That future, however, was possibly changed in events that have just far too complicated for the scope of this video. Maybe one day I'll cover it. And therefore, perhaps the creation of these human form TARDISes was averted, at least in the main timeline as we follow in the series. The other type of humanoid TARDIS is, of course, where the consciousness of a TARDIS is placed in the brain of a regular humanoid, as we saw in the 11th Doctor TV episode The Doctor's Wife. Lured to the living planet's house, the Doctor's TARDIS's consciousness is transferred into the woman Idris. This allows for the TARDIS and the Doctor to talk properly for the first time, expressing some frustration with each other, but also love. At the end of that story, the TARDIS's consciousness is able to return to its shell as the body of Idris dies. So, which of these could Susan Triad be? Both are possibilities. Is she a TARDIS maybe that escaped the Master's devastation on Gallifrey, a prototype they were developing during the Time War or just afterwards, and is therefore a fully fledged working TARDIS herself, hopping between time periods? Or maybe she's the TARDIS of another individual, like the meddling monk. Or maybe she's the Doctor's TARDIS. We see in the trailer shots of the discarded police box shell on a cliff top with moss growing on it and flowers laid at its base. This could be 14 or 15's TARDIS, or maybe even a future Doctor's TARDIS that's just a shell because the consciousness of the TARDIS has left it and occupied a human. Which of these do you think is more likely? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, so what if Susan isn't a TARDIS herself? What are the other possible explanations for that anagram? Is she a Time Lord who has a TARDIS and thought it would just be a fun alias? She could be the meddling monk, or meddling nun as they're sometimes called in their female incarnation. Is she a human who found a TARDIS and somehow managed to cannibalize its tech to form the basis of her tech empire, including possible time travel, which is maybe how she ends up in Isaac Newton's time? And here's a crazy one. Could Susan Twist, playing Susan Triad, actually be playing Susan Foreman, the Doctor's granddaughter, who at least thinks she came up with the TARDIS acronym in the first place, so she might think it apt to use it as a cover name. This has been a whole video filled with acronyms, anagrams and aliases, lots of A's. What do you think about all this? Let me know what you think of all these theories, or do you have your own? Let me know in the comments below. And why not check out my breakdown of the whole trailer right here. If you enjoyed this video, please do like, share, subscribe and all that jazz, and I'll see you next time for more Doctor Who videos. See you soon.